Okay, we're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at the Clarion Inn, Oneonta, New York, 24th of March, 2004, approximately 10:30 a.m. The interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Ferdinand Kunkler. I was born on December 11th, 1914, and in New York City.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering the service?
Well, I was a high school graduate, and I had 2 years at NYU, New York University.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted in the 71st Regiment, New York National Guard, in 1935.
Now, whereabouts was that located?
It's in Manhattan, and 34th, between 33rd and 34th Street and Park Avenue.
Oh, okay, yep. That armory is still there.
Yeah.
All right. What 1935? Did you go to camp every so often, or did you?
Yeah, it was the National Guard goes for 2 weeks every summer.
Okay. Where were some of the camps? Where did you go? Camp Smith or
Camp Smith, and
Or
one
Drum.
year we were at Camp Drum.
Drum? Okay.
It's now Fort Drum.
Yes. Okay. What things did you do in the 2 weeks while you were there?
Well, in the beginning, I was number 2 man on a machine gun.
Now, what kind of machine guns did you use?
And we had the water-cooled 30 caliber machine gun.
Now, what was your uniform? Did you still? You must have still had the old World War I helmets and so on.
Yes, we had the World War I helmets, and we had the broad-brimmed hats,
The campaign hats?
campaign hats. Yeah.
Artillery units in the area, were they using horses at the time? Do you remember? Or
No, I didn't see any horses. We had trucks.
you had trucks, okay. They were probably using the old French 75s. Do you know?
Well, I
I'm not sure.
wasn't in the artillery.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
The
So, how often did you meet besides doing your 2 weeks every year?
every week.
Every week? What were some of the things you did when you went to the armory?
Well, of course, close order drill was one thing, and we practiced assembling and disassembling machine guns. I remember we had to do it blindfolded because they said if it was nighttime and something you had to clear a gun or clear a stoppage of some sort, you wouldn't be able to see anyway, so you had to learn to do it blindfolded. And we're armed with a sidearm of a pistol, and we had target practice in the basement of the armory. They had a little range down there.
Would you carry 45?
With a 45. And we had a pistol team in the company, and they won the McNabb Trophy 3 years in a row, I remember. I don't know if you know if they
No.
have a McNabb Trophy anymore.
No, what was that? What was the McNabb Trophy?
For the pistol marksmanship.
Okay. Were you on the team, or was it just some of your?
I was on the team, but I wasn't the number one on the team. I was a substitute.
Okay.
We had better shots than me.
Did you ever go for any summer maneuvers anywhere besides Drum or
Yes,
Smith?
we went up, I can't recall the name of the town, it was way up north, near the St. Lawrence River. It was supposed to be the largest peacetime maneuver in our country's history.
What year was that?
I couldn't tell you
Okay,
exactly.
that's
It was somewhere in between 35 and 40.
Had you been to basic training during that period, or did?
We trained recruits right at the armory.
Okay, so,
That
so
was
you
the
didn't,
that was the basic training.
Okay.
We didn't go away.
Now, where were you and what do you recall about the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Well, I'd been sent to Fort Wayne, the motor maintenance school, and I had just finished, and I was on my way back. The regiment was on their way back from maneuvers down in the Carolinas.
now you were still in the National Guard at that point?
Yes,
Okay,
that was in August. No, wait. No, that was December. You're talking
Yes,
about
Pearl
December
Harbor.
7th. Yeah. No, had been activated for over a year.
and you were still an enlisted man at that point?
Yes, I was a sergeant at that time.
Okay.
And I was on my way back, and I was going to meet the outfit back in Fort Dix. And I got back on a Saturday. I went to my mother's house. She had still lived in Manhattan. I stayed there, and I went to visit some friends on Sunday morning. And when I got there, they told me about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. That's the first I knew about it. And we put the radio on immediately and watched and listened to the radio all day practically.
When was your unit activated then?
September 16th, 1940.
All right.
That was for 1 year, which would have been over September 16th, 41. A week or so before that, it was, I guess it was presidential executive order, I guess, by the president. Our term was extended 3 more months, which would have made it December 16th. And you know what happened December 7th?
Yes.
Did you ever hear the term over the hill in Ohio? Or
Yeah.
in October?
Yeah. That was when we were supposed to get out a month before October.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when your service was extended in 1941, where did you go? You said you were extended after Pearl Harbor and activated.
Well, we were continuing, our activation was continuing.
Right.
And then it was changed, after Pearl Harbor, it was changed to the duration of the war.
Okay. And where were you sent then?
Well, we went, the unit went back to Fort Dix.
Okay.
And I was supposed to be married the next month, in January. I already had gotten leave, 10-day leave to go home and get married. My wife-to-be had her blood test. Those days you had to have a blood test to get married. And I was in charge of the guard the night before I was to go. I was to go to, my leave was to start the next morning when I got off duty. And orders came through, all these furloughs canceled. So the next thing we had, I think we had 2 or 3 days to pack up, and we moved to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana. And then we were in Camp Claiborne, Louisiana for, maybe 1 or 2 months. And then they moved us to Fort Lewis, Washington State. And we were sure we were going to the Pacific. But then the orders came through that all Japanese had to be moved from the West Coast back, had to move back, none were to be allowed. Japanese or Japanese descent, ancestry, couldn't be within 200 miles of the Pacific coast. And of course they didn't have enough MPs to handle it, so they formed MP escort guard companies, and they took them from the infantry, and I got it moved over into the the 322nd MP Escort Guard Company.
So your job was to help move the Japanese?
Yeah, we helped move, we assembled them in the west, we were up in State Washington. They had others further down. And we assembled them in the Western Washington State Fairgrounds. That was a big place and it was empty. We assembled them there, and then from there they were sent off to relocation camps. Now, it was my understanding, and I think it's true, that if they could find a place to live outside of that 200-mile area zone, they were free to go. You read about being in a concentration camp, but the trouble with it was that when they first ordered them to move out, nobody wanted them. Any place they went to go, they were thrown out. Some of them were even shot at. And so we assembled them there until we had it pretty well cleaned out. And then we were, my company, 322nd, was sent down to California. And to Camp Manzanar. Which was in the Owens Valley in California. And I was there, let's see, we went down there in the spring. No, I got there in June. And with the company. And then on December 7th, we were there until December 7th. We had a riot in the camp. There was a group that was that were really Japanese. And they wanted a celebration on the 7th of December. They wanted to celebrate the start of the war in which they were going to beat us. And it developed into a riot. And we had to put the riot down. And then...
was anybody injured in the riot?
We shot 11 of them. I don't know if this is in the records or not. But they had an investigative committee, I guess you'd call it, came and investigated it after the riot. In the meantime, we picked up, we found out who the instigators of the thing was, who the troublemakers were. And they wanted to establish a camp for them, and that was really a confinement camp. They couldn't leave there. And they...
Now, where was that camp set up?
That was set up in Utah, near a place called Moab, M-O-A-B, in Utah. And it was an old abandoned CCC camp. After the war came along, the CCC didn't exist anymore, and this camp was abandoned. And I was sent out with a detachment to take these troublemakers out there and establish the camp, which I did. And to give you an idea of how the feeling out there, we didn't have any railroads at Camp Manzanar, so we had to truck them down to, I can't remember the name of the place. There's a railroad station there anyway. It's about 50 miles away. And there they had a special train set up to take them. But the train wasn't in there yet when we arrived, so we kept them there. And every once in a while, one of the Japs would have to go to the bathroom. So I'd send the guard with him to go to the bathroom. And after about 3 or 4 of them went, the sergeant came over to me and he says, "Lieutenant," he says, "I wouldn't send any more people to the bathroom there." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, there's a guy down there who just got notice last week that his son had been killed by the Japanese in the Pacific, and he's talking up shooting these guys." So I announced to them there'd be no more leaving the area until the trains come in. They could relieve themselves when they got on the trains. And I took them out, and we we set up the camp, and I was there about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And then they sent a detachment out from the Army camp near Salt Lake City. And they relieved us, and we went back to our units. And this was supposed to be temporary duty for me. I was on temporary duty. So I thought, well, now I'll go back to 71st up in Fort Lewis.
Before you mention that, how did you feel about the internment of the Japanese?
Well, I didn't think they were mistreated.
Mm-hmm.
They set up a hospital for anybody that was sick or injured in the camp, manned it with doctors. They set up schools for the children, and they supplied them with school teachers who were Americans, not Japanese. And they had pretty good quarters. They fed them. I thought that they were fairly well treated. I think they were a lot better treated than Americans are in Japan.
Did most of them speak English?
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, the head of the hospital was a man of Japanese descent, and he was a doctor, been educated in this country. He spoke perfect English.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you thought you were going back to the 71st?
Yeah, and sure enough, orders came through changing my MOS, military occupational specialty, from infantry to military police, and assigning me to the 3rd Army and headquarters in Fort Sam, Houston, Texas.
Okay. All right. Could you tell what happened when you went down there?
Well, the Army was forming a special unit down there.
Mm-hmm.
It was, primary duty was the security of the 3rd Army's headquarters, but then they did other police duties as well. And that's what I was assigned to, that unit. And how I got there, I don't know. I never applied for it, but they had special qualifications to get in that unit. You had to be, I don't remember them all, but I know you had to be at least 5 feet tall. And I think the IQ, you had to have 120 IQ. I'm not sure of that number though. That's almost 60 years ago.
Yes.
And there were several other qualifications you had to have.
Mm-hmm.
But how I got in there, I don't know. They just appointed me there.
Now, was this the 503rd?
Yes,
Okay.
I was Company B. They had 3 companies, infantry regiments that had 4 companies in a battalion, but this was three companies and a headquarters.
Okay. Now, you were an officer by this point, you correct?
I was an officer. I had a reserve. I had been to officer candidate school in the National Guard. So I was an officer of reserve, which became active when my unit became active on the 16th of September 1940.
Now, whereabouts did you go for officer candidate school?
They had it right there at the Armory.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't go to Camp Smith?
No, I went evenings,
Okay.
because I had a job during the day.
Uh-huh.
All right, so what special training were the men given that most of these men were changed over from infantry then to MP service,
No,
or were
no.
they trained as MPs?
No, so a lot of them were trained as MPs, and a lot of them had been police and civilian life.
Okay. Did anyone that went into the MPs receive any kind of what kind of specialized training did they receive?
Well, they had to go. They went through basic training before they came to us.
Right.
A lot of them were enlisted men, were inductees. They'd been drafted.
So they went through the regular basic training. Then what happened to them from there?
Well, they were selected, I guess. They all had to meet the requirements, and then they were assigned to us.
Did you give them any specialized training then?
Yes, we used the police training right there at Fort Sam Houston.
Okay. How long was the specialized police training, do you recall?
Well, it continued, and it was on the job training at the same time. We had the top secret room we had to take care of. And one of the things is there was a big safe, I remember there, and that had to be locked when everybody left at night. And if it didn't get locked, our people had to check it. If they ever found it unlocked, which they did once or twice, they called whoever was in charge of that branch. They called him. They didn't call anybody else. And we put a guard on there until he sent somebody down to lock it. They were very unhappy about that. And we were very happy when we could catch him.
Okay, when did you eventually went overseas? When did you go overseas?
January of '44. They moved us up to the Boston port of embarkation. And we were at a place called Camp Miles Standish there for about 2 weeks, I think. A week or 2 weeks. And then we loaded on a ship called the Elizabeth C. Stanton. Did you ever hear of Elizabeth C. Stanton?
I have.
Yes.
Yeah, I never did.
Yes, it's a woman's rights.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. I found that out when I mentioned it to my son-in-law's mother, that I'd never heard of anybody named Elizabeth C. Stanton. She's from Gloversville, and so was Elizabeth C. Stanton. So she was appalled that I was so ignorant.
Now, did you get married at all before you went overseas? Or
Yes.
When did you get married?
I finally got to leave in August, and we got married on August 23rd of that year, instead of January.
All right. So in January of '44, you left from Boston, and what was the destination?
We went to Firth of Clyde. We went up to Firth of Clyde in Scotland, and we unloaded there. A place called Gurrick, a town called Gurrick was the nearest town. And we went by train down to England. And we set up security for the Third Army's headquarters in a place called Peaver Hall, P-E-O-V-E-R, which was the forward headquarters of Third Army. The rear headquarters was about a mile from there. I can't recall the name of it. But we had to maintain security in both places. And that was near Manchester. Manchester was the nearest large city in England that we were here at. And we were there until, not quite a month after D-Day. We didn't go over on D-Day. Third Army didn't become operational in Normandy until 1st of August.
Now, did you ever get to see Patton often, or?
Oh yeah, we were his guards. We guarded his headquarters and his sleeping quarters.
Did you ever speak to him?
Oh yeah. Mostly he spoke to me.
Uh-huh.
My speech was very short.
How did you, what were your feelings about Patton?
I thought he was a great general.
Did you get along well with him?
Well, I had to. What else could you do?
All right, so...
Yeah, we went across on the 4th of July. And we landed, I think it was Omaha Beach. And then we had to set up security we were ahead of the headquarters. The headquarters followed us only by a day or two. But we set up the security for the headquarters before they got there. And then they arrived a day or so later and occupied them.
Now, you were a lieutenant at this time.
No, I was captain.
Oh, you were a captain at this time, okay.
I got my promotion in Boston.
Okay,
Then we were at Boston.
all right. What kind of weapons did you carry?
Carbines and 45
Mhm.
pistol.
Okay. When you established security for the headquarters, what exactly did you do when you went in?
Well, you secured the area, made sure there was nobody there that shouldn't be there, and made sure that they had already picked the spot, but we had to make sure that it was secure.
No, they set up their headquarters in a building?
No.
No, they didn't?
Sometimes they did if there was a building available, but buildings weren't always available.
Right.
Sometimes they set it in tents,
Okay.
and we were in tents. Sometimes we were just on the ground.
Okay. Now you were assigned jeeps then, as your unit? Have jeeps or trucks or?
Or what?
Did your unit had a combination of jeeps and trucks to get around, to move around?
Oh,
or did you march?
we had them assigned to us. It was part of our equipment.
How many? Now you mentioned in your 503rd Battalion, you had 3 companies and a headquarters unit. About how many men were in this,
I had
approximately?
I had exactly 205 men and officers in my company.
Okay. Okay, so you must have seen a lot of, like Eisenhower and so on, coming in and out of camp.
Yes. See, when people like Eisenhower or we had General Marshall come once, I only saw him once, and anybody of that stature, shall we say, entered the Third Army's area, it was our responsibility.
What were your reactions to, as a person like Marshall and Eisenhower? Did you ever get to really talk to them or converse with them at all?
Yes, that picture that you see there, that was it was when he came up to confer with
This
Patton.
one?
Yes, he came up to confer with Patton.
Okay, if you hold that
Oh, I
in
got
front.
some writing on the back here too.
Okay.
Because of his rank, we formed an honor guard to honor him when he came in, and this is the honor guard.
Okay, if you could
And,
hold that up in front of you. So this is Eisenhower here, and this is you here?
That's right.
Okay, and this is your unit?
That's right.
What were your feelings about Eisenhower as a person and a general?
He's a very friendly sort of a general. You don't expect that general to be friendly. But I remember when he arrived, I went over to him and saluted and said, "Sir, your guard is formed. Would you care to inspect your guard?" He says, "You bet I do." So that's what he's doing. He's inspecting the guard there, and I was with him.
Okay, so on the back of this, it says it was in France in '44.
That's right.
Okay, now this is another picture of you with Eisenhower. That's in 1945. It says said on the back.
No, that was.
Oh.
Let's see. I think that was still in France.
Oh, okay.
So it had to be 44.
So this is Eisenhower here next to the tree, and you behind him.
Yes, yes.
Okay, got it.
What were some of your other assignments besides guarding the head? That was your basic assignment
every
was
time they
providing
got
security?
something, every time they got something special, they called us.
Mhm.
When I remember a couple of there's one that you hear about these suicide bombers.
Mhm.
We had one too.
Oh, really?
Some Frenchmen come in, I remember, and reported that the German soldier had was hiding out in a house in the village. So we sent the squad down because we didn't know if he saw one, remember how many were there.
Mhm.
So we surrounded the building, and then one of the fellows who spoke German called out to him, told him that he was surrounded. They come out with his hands up, and he'd be taken as a prisoner of war, and no harm would come to him. Well, after a while, some more coaxing, he come out, and he had one hand up, and the other hand he held over here, like this. So I guess they thought at the time, I wasn't there, but they thought at the time that he was wounded. So they closed in around him, and when they closed around him, he opened his hand, and he had a grenade. And of course, when he opened his hand, the grenade was armed, and it went off. It almost blew him in half, and took two of our guys. They weren't killed. They took them off to medics. The medics picked them up. And I don't know, you never hear from them once they go to medics, unless they happen to come back to your unit. I had a lieutenant that was shot through the stomach. And we didn't think it was very serious because there wasn't a lot of blood or anything. And the medics came and picked him up, and I helped to put him on. And he had a pistol with him. That was his own private pistol. He owned it. It wasn't the government. And the story was, we've heard that if you go back to medics, you got anything valuable on you, you're not going to come back with it. So he asked me, would I take the pistol and hold it for him till he could get back to the company? So I said, sure. So I took the pistol, and I didn't hear from him for about a month. Then I got a letter from him. He was in England, the General Hospital in England. They'd taken him back to the field hospital. The field hospital patched him up, sent him back to the General Hospital in England. And he didn't know when he'd get back to the company. And then I didn't hear any more from him for a couple of months. And then I got another letter from him. He was in a rehabilitation center in Washington, state of Washington. And he wasn't from Washington. I don't know why they sent him out there. He was from Chicago, as I recall. But you never hear from him after they take him out.
Mhm.
So what happened to his gun?
I still got it.
Basically, then you stayed with Patton all the way through the war.
Yeah.
What happened in the battle when they were moving toward the Bulge?
Well,
Could you describe that?
the three company commanders were told to come up to the battalion headquarters. That the battalion commander had been called to the army headquarters. Something special was going on. Well, we waited there, and he came back, and he told us about the Bulge. And the Third Army was headed into Germany at that time, straight into Germany. And they were on the lower right flank of the front. So the Patton was sending the army toward the north, and just leaving enough to hold on where they were. They were not going to advance anymore there. Turned it and moved it up to a place called Bastogne, where there was a airborne division surrounded there, and they were going up to relieve that the division. And they were sending an armored division up to relieve it. Now, this division had never been in this area before. It was nighttime, it's pitch dark, and they were supposed to travel through here where they'd never been before. So they had us have a jeep with two men in it at the head of each column, going up to Bastogne. So that was one of our special missions. We got them up there okay. Because our unit had been all through there as MPs. One of the fellows at the reunion a couple of years ago, he said to me, "You probably don't remember it, Captain, but I was put on a corner, wherever there was a fork in the road, and they could take the wrong fork, we put them in there to guide them to the right fork." He said, "You put me on that fork in the road up there." I think he said it went on at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, it was earlier than that. I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And you left me there until 3 o'clock the next day afternoon. Well, we had nobody else to put on it. You know, I couldn't relieve them. We even had some of the cooks out there.
Did you have full winter gear by that time?
Yeah. And I remember there was snow. That was in December.
Yes. Now, were you in the column that ended up relieving Bastogne, or?
No, I wasn't in it.
You weren't.
Our men weren't. After they got them within, I guess, you know, where they could see their
Yes.
way, they came returned back to us. But there were people traveling up there until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This fellow was finally relieved.
Were you in on any of the liberation of POW camps, or the?
No, but I did get it to Dachau, which is near Munich.
Yes.
And the reason I got there is because a fellow that I had served with, and I knew him, he was from Brooklyn. And he and I were pretty good friends. He was a lawyer, as a matter of fact. He was in the military government. And they had put him in charge of the camp at Dachau. And I heard about this. Somebody told me, "Hey, you remember Burke? He's in charge of the Dachau camp now." And they were getting the prisoners back to wherever they came from, Russia or wherever, the displaced people. So one day there wasn't much doing, and I got a Jeep, and another fellow and I, we went up to see Burke, and sure enough, he was. And he showed us around the camp and different things that were there. But that's the only POW was the POW camp. It was a concentration camp that I was in.
As Patton moved across Germany into Czechoslovakia, you stayed with them then all the way through?
The day the war ended, I was in Czechoslovakia. I had gone forward to try to pick a spot and see what we needed in the way of security and so on, because I knew where they were slated to move to. I got back that night, and I said to somebody, "Well, I think I got a good spot." So he said, "Forget it, the war's all over. We've been celebrating all day." I didn't know anything about it. So I celebrated by going over to the mess hall and having a cup of coffee.
Do you remember your reaction when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
No, I didn't. We were busy. I didn't really do much, think much about it.
Were you in Europe when Patton ended up dying, being killed in the accident?
Yes, but I wasn't with the 503rd anymore. I got injured in the first part of July, I guess it was. And
What happened to you?
I was playing baseball. The war was over. I was playing baseball, and I ran in I didn't field, and I ran in to catch a fly, and I yelled out, "I got it!" And I guess it was the shortstop. He ran backwards. Both of us were looking up at the ball, and he jumped because I was right under it, and he was almost to me. And he jumped to catch it, and he came down, he spiked me on the leg. So at that time I was the executive officer of the battalion, and our battalion commander had volunteered for the Pacific. They asked anybody want to volunteer for the Pacific. He did.
You didn't.
I did. they asked me, I said, I got enough. So I was actually acting as battalion commander at that time. And well, anyway, they sent me to I was taken to the field hospital, which was the nearest. And they operated on it. I never knew what they did. I don't even know who the operator was. And then I was there about a week, and then they sent me back to France, the general hospital. And altogether, I was out about a month. And when I came back, they sent me to a different unit because I had enough. You had to have a certain number of points in order to go home, and I had way over that amount. So they sent me to a unit that was going to come back to this country. So I was only with them about a week or so, and they sent us to a camp near Antwerp, Belgium. We were supposed to sail out of Antwerp. There was shipping there. But the shipping was all tied up there. So finally, after a couple of weeks there, they sent us down to Marseille. And that's the port we came out of. Came back to New York.
Now you mentioned before we started taping, you then went into the inactive reserves?
Inactive for about 3 months, 3 years.
3 years,
And then they offered me this position, which I took.
Now, once you were discharged, did you make use of the GI Bill at all?
No.
No. You didn't use a mortgage, GI mortgage for a home or anything?
No, I had a job while I was still on terminal leave. I didn't know I was going to have a job, but you know, when you get home, you go around and see all your old friends.
Sure.
If they're still there. You can't see them in the daytime, they're working. But I knew a fellow who had a business, a petroleum business, and I'd been friendly with him before the war, and so I stopped and saw him in his office for a few minutes, and the next day we had a terrific snowstorm on Long Island. And that night he called me and he said, "Would you do me a favor?" I said, "What do you want?" He said, "My drivers are having trouble on the truck. They're only a driver." He said, "I want to give him a helper, somebody to go along with him." He said, "Would you mind tomorrow coming in and riding on the truck with one of the drivers?" So I said, "Sure, I don't have too much to do anyway." So I went and I rode with him that day, helped him, and we came in that night and he was settling up his tickets and everything, and my friend came over to me and he said, I hate to ask you this, but can you come in again tomorrow?" So I came in the next day, and then he wanted me to stay the rest of the week, which I did. Nothing was said about getting paid or anything. I thought I was doing him a favor. And at the end of the week, he paid me. And to make a long story short, I was there 27 years.
Oh, gee.
Now you stayed in the reserves until what year?
74.
74, okay.
February 23rd,
Okay.
74.
And you retired at what rank?
Lieutenant Colonel. It's on the...
Yes,
okay.
yes. And you never ended up in Korea? You
No.
said,
I got notice. I got a notice to have my affairs in order and be ready to leave in 30 days' notice. And I never heard another word. And I didn't ask him.
okay. Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
I'm in the American Legion.
Are you
And I'm in the
active?
Reserve Officers Association.
Oh, okay. Did you ever keep contact with anyone that you served with?
Our unit, I think I told you before, our unit gets together once a year. We meet in September. This year is supposed to... Oh, incidentally, it might be of interest for you to know, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we had a guest at our reunion, General Patton's granddaughter
Oh, really?
came to visit.
How many members of your unit are still living?
Well, I told you each
Yes.
Yeah, we got a few less. The last September, we had about 40 there. But some of them were wives. My wife goes with me. And some of them are widows of they still come. And it brought up the attendance to 40 out of the 200.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
Well, it changed a lot, but I don't know specifically what it was.
Okay.
Do you want to hold up some of those photos for us? We'll get those on tape.
Now this is General Patton. Do you remember where that was taken?
It was in Germany. I think it was Munich. We took over the caserne there. That's their word for, we call it an armory, but they call it a caserne. And they have it's built in a horseshoe shape, and in the center is like a parade ground. It's in a horseshoe shape around the center.
Okay.
And I believe that was it. We took that over and used it for barracks for our people.
Okay, can you hold that up in front of you? Okay, got it. And what is this picture? Who are the people in this picture here?
Oh, the General Patton is on the left, and there's 3 corps commanders.
Okay. All right, got it.
And this appears to be the same, taken at the same time. Looks like it's just a close-up.
Oh, this is a poorer picture of that.
Yes.
So they cut the
Yeah.
1 corps commander off. You don't want that, do you?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a different, because this man's changed he's looking to the side rather than straight ahead.
Looking maybe to see where the guy went.
Okay, got it.
And this one?
Okay, are you in that picture?
No. This was in England. And we had the first Free French Division assigned to the Third Army. And General Leclerc was the commanding officer of the French Division.
I'm going to hold up that photo I have.
And this was an honor guard for General Leclerc.
Oh, okay.
And where and when was that taken?
That was taken in 1940 when we were first activated, federalized. There's a bunch of us, took a group of us, everybody got a picture taken.
Okay. All right, got it.
64 years ago.
That was it.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.